Tenney of New York for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman Meeks and Ranking Member McCall, and I want to thank our panel of experts here. My first question is to Acting Legal Advisor Visek. I just wanted to kind of clarify some of the questions that Representative Meyer had on the authorization of the AUMF and the Obama administration using massive military action, months of airstrikes, dropping munitions on Libya. And what is the domestic legal difference between Ukraine and Libya? And don't you think it's a kind of a subjective standard? Is the reason that we're not doing anything here, or that Putin is more of a danger than Gaddafi? And don't you think that maybe in putting together legal language that the vagueness leaves room for political subjectivity and political manipulation of that language?
Thank you for the question, Congressman. Looking back on what was then Operation Unified Protector during the Obama administration, the domestic authority would have been Article 2. There was also an international law basis provided for by the UN Security Council, which authorized the effort to protect the civilian population.
My question is, if I may reclaim my time, is there a domestic legal difference, not an Article 2 difference, or you're referring to like the War Powers Resolution? What is the practical difference, and aren't we getting into sort of vague territory where this could be manipulated and not clear? And I think the Deputy Secretary referred to being more specific on this language and revamping it. Would you agree to that?
Well, first I should say that if I understand the question, that specificity and knowing what the facts are is always important. And I think in the framing of this hearing, the administration's made it clear that replacement AUMF would be specific and narrow. And just to be clear, the AUMF did not factor into, the 2001 AUMF did not factor into the Libya operation under Obama.
Would you say that Putin is more dangerous than Gaddafi?
I'm a lawyer, but I would say they're both incredibly dangerous and despicable.
Thank you. Deputy Secretary Sherman, can you provide an updated assessment on Russia's Black Sea Fleet and the amphibious assaults on the Ukraine's coast?
I would
you do that quickly.
I would defer to a defense assessment to DOD.
Are there urgent needs by our NATO allies on the Black Sea, particularly Romania, to defend against the heightened tensions caused by Russia in the Black Sea?
So I think, obviously, in the context of NATO, this is something that's watched very closely. At this point, I don't think this is the right forum to talk about potential Russian threats against a NATO ally.
Thank you. And Deputy Secretary Sherman, there are unofficial reports that this administration plans to rescind Executive Order 13876 that was imposed by the Trump administration and lift sanctions on nearly every one of the 112 people and entities sanctioned under this authority. Does the administration plan to indeed lift these sanctions on the Iranians responsible for the 1994 AMIA bombing, the 1983 Beirut attacks, and is that something that you're considering in the Iran nuclear talks?
Congresswoman, I'm not familiar with that exact executive order, and so I would want to take a look at it. I would say that there are Iranian persons and entities that are designated under our counterterrorism authorities that will continue no matter what happens. If there is a return to the JCPOA, we have many tools, so I would have to look at the specific list that you were discussing.
It's titled the Supreme Leader's Office Executive Order EO Trump Administration. It was 2019, but in the event that these are part, do you know if—
I was not here in 2019, so—
I understand that, but these are recent reports that we're getting that this is a negotiating tool being used. Would you support, for example, letting terrorists like IRGC Brigadier General Hussein Dalgan, who led the IRGC forces into Lebanon and Syria when Hezbollah bombed the Marine compound in Beirut in 1983 and killed 240 U.S. Marines? Would you let them go free? Is that something you would negotiate into this agreement, or would this be a non-starter for you?
Congresswoman, this is not about letting people go free. I totally understand your point, and we certainly want to protect Americans from anyone who would do harm to us.
Would you accept these terms?
Gentlelady's time has expired. I now recognize Representative Tom Melanowski of New Jersey, who's the Vice Chair of the full committee, for 5 minutes.